need to have these items to make your manga collection cleaner, more aesthetic, and just overall better. I have some personally, and I know that they make a worlds of difference in anything from small to large collections. All the links for everything will be in the description. Alright, let's get into this. Alright, first up, we have manga. I'm kidding. I would hope we all know that, right? But in all honesty, first up is something I would recommend depending on your climate, is a dehumidifier or a humidifier. I personally have a dehumidifier. I deal with a humid climate where I live, so that works better for me. You ideally want your manga collection to be stored in an area that has anywhere from approximately 40 to 60% humidity. Now, I've noticed like if you store it within like 35 to 65, it's not that big of a difference, but that's where you can start to find some damage to your manga. So if you have a dehumidifier, or if you need a dehumidifier, that means you live in like a humid climate, and you could start noticing mold on your manga. Whenever you're trying to display a cover, it may bow open, so like you'll see the pages like flowy, or like it might turn wavy. It all just kind of depends. If you need a humidifier, you'll be in a climate that's anything under 40% humidity. This will be because if you don't get a humidifier, your manga could become dry and start cracking, and the pages can become brittle. It could also affect your shelves, and humidity getting into, especially if you have cheaper shelves like I do, humidity can get into the bottom of them and make them swell up a little bit. I've very rarely seen this, but I have seen it, and I can't find the exact one, so I'm gonna go ahead and throw up one that I do have. All right, this is the closest to what I do have for a dehumidifier. I live in a little bit of a bigger space, so I use a 5,000 square foot, which is honestly overkill for my room, but I'd rather be safe than sorry. And they can get quite pricey, as you can see, but you can get some cheaper ones depending on where you live. Like there's this one right here that is for 2,000 square foot for 158, which still isn't cheap by no means, don't get me wrong, but it is cheaper. So just find out your space and what you need for your environment, and this is something that makes a world of a difference. All right, getting away from things that are good for your manga and things that just make your shelves look cool is figures. I have I'm not gonna say a ridiculous amount, but I have a decent amount of figures, and I just have cheap figures. It's not like I'm out here spending $100, $200 on statues. The most I've spent on a figure is $40, right? And to me, that's still a lot, because you can still find them in that $20 to $30 range. Now, they're cheaper, they're not the highest quality, whatever, right? I'm gonna pull up some people's collections that already do have figures as well, so you can see what some more expensive ones may look like. All right, I just ripped this image off Google just to show you guys an example, so I don't know who to give credit to, but I wanted to point out, so you can see Denji right here on the volumes of Chainsaw Man, and then you have Misa, and then we have Ray from Neon Genesis Evangelion right in front of the volumes. This is something I also like to do, is if I have a figure for the series, I place it with the series. Now, for some series, I do have too many figures, specifically Naruto, so I have them scattered more out across my room, and I try and make different setups with them. And then here is another image I found. All right, then we have this. This is what I would consider almost an extreme. I found this one on Reddit, and I'm gonna go ahead and throw the username of the poster up here on the screen right now. You can almost see how the figures are, for the most part, sectioned off. So he has some Naruto right here. I can't tell what he has going on right here besides all these lightsabers. We have Bleach, and then we have Denji, and then the main character from Hellsing. I'm not sure what this is from. And then we have what looks to be all fairy tale characters, and then Fallout and Assassin's Creed, right? So also displaying your other interests as well. So we also have some more Naruto, then we have Inosuke, and then I've never read fairy tale, so I'm not even going to try with the names. You can also see how he has the manga set up beside of it, which just kind of makes it blend all together. Now, personally, my attention is drawn more towards the figures because that's taking up the biggest part of his shelf space, but it still adds on to his collection. All right. And then these are some figures I found from popular series that you might be interested in. So first we have Megami from JJK, this is what I would consider to be on the cheaper end, so about $50, right? And then this is like, it's not going to be the most detailed piece, but it does have a good base and some good details, especially with the rabbits. And then next, we're going to have Naruto. And this is what I would consider probably the most expensive figure range I would ever personally spend, which will be in about the 150 range. As you can see, the detail is a lot more intense. Like, you can make everything out very clearly and very purposely. You can see the frogs down here and the detail in their eyes and on their heads. Also the detail in the clouds. Not the clouds, smoke. And this is just overall a highly detailed figure that you're paying a good amount for. So this is where I would recommend getting it from a series you love. And then this is what I would consider like the extreme of what I would never spend, but is awesome, right? So we have Guts from Berserk. And I mean, you can just see the statue is such detailed. And also with these, you'll notice a size difference with a price increase for the most part. And then this one's at about $300. So you do see like the detail and quality jump with the price, but they do cap off at a certain point where the price, the quality, and detail is not worth it. All right, next up, we're going to talk about 2-in-1 here, which is going to be shelf risers and book stands. So shelf risers can make you maximize the most of your space, especially if you have deeper shelves. You can use the shelf risers to have books in the back still be displayed while storing books in front of them. And at that point, you're getting double the space on your shelves for not that much money. So like right here is an 8-pack and they come in different sizes, but it's only $23, which, I mean, that's not an insane amount of money to spend compared to like a 70, 80, $120 new shelf, right? And you do have to do some measurements. You can even make your own ones out of like old cardboard boxes. I know people have done it out of Funko Pop boxes and like empty tissue holders. So you can make your own so you don't have to spend anything, and you would just have to make sure that the measurements are correct. And it won't work for all types of manga, of course, depending on how tall your shelf is and how deep it is. So my shelves, I could store some regular sized volumes, but I couldn't store like a volume of Vagabond on a shelf riser. And then we have stands. So these are more for displaying like your manga covers, and showing off volumes that you really just like the artwork on the front. These aren't a necessity. These are less of a necessity than the other, or at least in my opinion. So these are some that I would get for my shelf, right? Because I don't have book risers or shelf risers or book stands, but you get 20 for $22, which isn't like the best price, and I guarantee you could find some better priced ones, but 20 is more than I feel like I would ever need, and I have a fairly decent sized collection. It's about 300 plus volumes. I personally would recommend this, especially if you want to display individual volumes, because they can become damaged depending on how you stand them if you don't use a book stand. And then the last thing I have is what I believe can help a shelf's aesthetic, looks, and honestly just your room's overall vibe the most, and that is proper lighting on shelves. I need to personally invest in lights. You can go with battery powered or rechargeable. I'm gonna go ahead and throw up some rechargeable ones. They are motion detectable, so if you want to, you can leave them on, off, or just automated with the motion sensor. And you can get a warm white light, or you can get like a more blue tinted. But I'm gonna throw up some pictures right here of people's shelves with good lighting, and then I'm gonna throw up some pictures of people's shelves who don't have good lighting, and then we'll compare and contrast. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and throw up the user name of the person I pulled this image from. This isn't like the highest quality image, but you can see how nice their shelves look with the lighting. You can see how the volumes are more forefront and you don't have to like squint to see if it was a better quality image. And then it also just makes everything else on the shelves pop, right? So like the little pictures they have, the stickers, the acrylic stands, it makes everything pop so much more than if your shelf looked dim. And I'm not saying like, oh, having dim shelves is a bad thing, but the light really does change the way your whole aesthetic looks. And then we have another one up here with a different type of lighting. So this is a popular type of light you'll see, which is a puck light. Also, I'm going to go ahead and throw the username up here. This person does have really nice shelves, and then you can see how the light is adding so much more emphasis onto the volumes. All right, and then we have a collection right here with bad lighting. I'm not going to talk about the quality of the photo because the lighting is what I want to focus on. But see, even here, you can see the colors aren't popping and they're harder to see. Also, the volumes, excluding the detail lacking in this picture, the shadows make it hard to even notice. See, like here, we can make out, because it's the brightest part, we can make out some of these volumes, right? Like that's Vinland Saga, then My Hero, and like up here, you can kind of make out that that's Black Clover, but I have no idea what's going on this top shelf due to the lack of lighting. Here's what I would say most people's shelves probably look like without lighting, right? Your room has some lighting in itself, but it's harder to make out and then things don't pop as much. So I personally think that lighting is the biggest change you can make to the aesthetic and the looks of your manga collection. All right, that is all. I hope you guys enjoyed, and remember the thing that unites us. It's not about aesthetics or looks, it's just our love for manga.